the conversation of your life. Local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
Well, good morning. Good morning. I think I've given up on the count on how many days till Christmas. The official count is not enough. Are you ready? I'm not. Maybe. I guess I'll pull it all together in time. But anyhow, hey, welcome to the Russell Betts Show here on, wait a minute. It's the Russ Betts Show. Welcome to the Russ Betts Show here on iHub Radio. Good to have you with us. Coming to you each Sunday morning for a 2-hour examination of government. Basically what we do here. Once in a while we delve off into some other issues. And we're going to do some of that today. Last week, the week before, we were trying to get a rundown on what was going on in Hong Kong with the protests, the freedom protesters, whatever you want to call them. And ended up having a real interesting conversation with an associate on Thursday. He grew up in Hong Kong. I've spent time there. And it was a real interesting conversation. So we're going to get into some of that. He had some perspectives on where it is, what's going on. And of course, he's still got family and friends living there. So I was getting quite a bit of the local perspective update. So I'm going to pass some of that along to you. But we also, we examined government here at the Russ Betts Show. Basically consider it Government 101, trying to help you understand the process. It's not easy. The questions you get from people about what's going on in government gets to be, some of it's surprising at how, I don't want to insult anybody, but how remedial it is. Like, well, can I attend a city council meeting? And of course, every city council meeting you can attend. You don't need permission. They're there for you to watch. All government business is supposed to be out in the open. Well, with a couple exceptions, let's just say most all of government is supposed to be done in the open. And for those of you who are not regular listeners, in my day job, I'm a city council member in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I take to the microphone on Sundays to fill you in, give you some details, pull the curtain back behind city government, let you know what's going on. And so we're going to do, using city of Malibu as an example, in case you hadn't heard, they had a fire in Malibu that was over a year ago, and they're having some troubles. You get people who were happily going about their lives. They go to work, they come home, they pull in the driveway, cook dinner, watch TV, get on the computer, whatever you do in your normal life. And everything was good until one day when this fire sweeps through and wipes out a whole bunch of homes in Malibu. They lost 473 homes. So here's 473 homeowners that are all of a sudden getting introduced to a whole different world. The world of the plan, check, and permit counter at City Hall. Now, if you aren't familiar with that process, it's not easy. These 473 homeowners in Malibu are finding out, wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't just go in and say, hi, I want to build. You've got a permit counter that you've got to go through. And so it's been a problem in Malibu, so now what they've done is they've got a new city employee who's going to take charge of the rebuilding process. And her title, I guess her title is New Environmental Sustainability Director. That's the title they've given her, and that's not a very welcoming title. Something like, hi, let's get it done department would be good, but okay, let's have a look at this. Okay, so she promises a more streamlined process to get Malibu families back into their burned-out homes. That's the headline of the article here. And her name is Yolanda Bundy. And apparently they had a town hall last Saturday that focused on rebuilding Malibu. And she has some experience in this area. She worked in Ventura and helped hundreds of families rebuild after the 2017 Thomas Fire. And she said her goal is to streamline the permit process and assist homeowners through the maze of complicated regulations. And, if you've gone to Plan Check, you know what this complicated maze is. And she received applause, apparently, when she stated there will be just one counter for approval stamps. Now, if you don't know what that means is, the classic, you go into City Hall and somebody says, okay, great, well, thank you, but we don't do that here. I did what I did. Now you got to go over to this other department. Then you go over to that other department and they either say, yes, you're in the right place. Here, let's take a look at what you got. They say, oh, no, we don't do that. You got to go back to where they just sent you from. You go back there and they say, no, they got it wrong. You got to go back over there. So you go back over there and they say, well, that's not what we do here. You need to go back there. So look, I've already been back there 3 times. You get on the phone right now and call them. I'll wait here. So apparently they're going to do it where, it's just one place you go, one counter that you see. No matter what other department has to sign off or approve your plans, it's just going to be this one counter that you go to. So she got a bunch of applause for that because apparently there's a bunch of residents a year later that are going through the other mess. It seems to me to make perfect sense just to have one counter. I don't know why somebody has to go through and say, okay, good, you got all your approvals now. All right, now move on to the other counter. I mean, private sector doesn't work that way. Why does government work that way? I'm doing a little griping now. But let's liken this to maybe you're going down to McDonald's for your breakfast. And you go in there and you say, hi, I would like to order whatever you order, an Egg McMuffin. Okay, great, take your order. And I'd like to add some fries with that. And the person at the counter says, well, you know what? We don't do the fries here at this counter. We only do the Egg McMuffin. So pay now and move down to the next register. In fact, get in line for the next register where they will take your money for the whatever it is, bacon, pancakes, whatever it is. And so that's basically, the way it works in government. You would think it would not make sense to anybody in government, but to them it makes perfect sense. Every department does their work and not another department's work. And I don't get it, but anyhow, apparently in Malibu they now do, that they're just going to use one counter. Now, the other change they're going to do is they're going to say there's going to be over-the-counter reviews for second submittals. Now, I don't imagine if you've never submitted plans that you know what that is, but basically the way this works is you draw up a very complicated set of plans for a house that encompass the California building code, the fire code, everything you could possibly imagine, and it's a long, long list of things that requirements you have to meet. The California building code books are no lie 6 foot, stacked end to end on a shelf, or next to each other on a shelf, 6 foot. If you stacked them up, they'd be 6 foot tall. All the codes and everything you have to read. So what happens is now you have somebody goes, if they're good and know what they're doing, and they know this code well, they'll draw up your house. And all on paper, with every detail called out, plumbing, electric, you name it, the foundation, the structural, the energy compliance. It's just a long, long list. I'm barely covering any of it. And you turn that in. Now, even the professionals who work with the California Building Code every day for 40 years or however long they've evolved in following this still don't get everything exactly correct. And what you have at City Hall are things called plan checkers. And those plan checkers will check your plans and they'll say, okay, great. You know what? You missed a few things. And so they will mark red lines on your plans and you take them back. Your architect looks at it again, or whoever's doing your work for you, he makes the corrections and he submits it again. Now, typically what happens in government is somebody new will look at those plans, and since it is so incredibly complicated, the building code, they will find new and different corrections. So it comes back to you, and they say, okay, well, sorry, but that was good. You did all those first corrections correct. Well, we found some more, so here, go fix these. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, why didn't you catch those the first time? So now you got to go back to your architect, and your architect says, okay, well, we anticipated some of those, but this is going to be another, $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever they're going to charge you to drop the second set. And incredibly, this can go on 2, 3, 4 times, getting corrections coming back. I know in our city what we were talking about, I never got it through. I only got one other vote to go along with me, was that if the city took in a project's plans and they went through and looked at it all, then that's it. You get the city looks at it, they mark some corrections. Then if they take it back, the person changes it, and they bring it back, and the city finds new or different corrections, and the city would have to pay for that person's architect. The principle is, get it right the first time. Look at it, get the plans correct, make sure you don't miss anything. But if you miss something, if you fail to catch everything, because it costs people time and money to make these changes, obviously the changes got to be made. Anyhow, so Malibu has decided that, okay, we recognize that problem. So now when it comes back for the second time, they say the over-the-counter reviews for the second submittal is going to be an over-the-counter review, meaning you'll sit down there with the plan checker at that time, and you'll mark those. And sometimes these can be marked on the plans just with a notation. Other times they want you to go back, reprint them. It costs a lot of money to print a set of plans. It isn't cheap. And and that's that. And then they're also promising new coordination with Southern California, Edison, and the fire department. And the fire department gets to be a biggie, too, because the fire department seems to get real creative on insisting on new requirements that haven't really necessarily been adopted into the California building code. I don't know if they're off at some seminar somewhere and they come up with this idea, hey, we'd sure like to see things move in this direction, and then somebody that does plan check for the department says, well, I heard about this at the seminar, why don't we just go ahead and require that? And even though it's not in the municipal code or the city code, who's going to argue with the fire department if they want something? Well, it's okay to argue with the fire department if they want something that's not in the code. So anyhow, they're going to fix that up in Malibu. The mayor of Malibu, Karen Farrar, she weighed in with an editorial talking about, identifying the problem and taking the opportunity to say, hey, we think this fix is going to be good here in Malibu. Who knows? But as far as, what's her name? Yolanda said, she said, you're my priority now. I'm not here to make you promises, only to walk you through the process. We will make government happen. We will make it happen together. We're here for you. Well, we shall see.
The conversation of your life. Local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
I don't know how much more deeply I dig into this bureaucracy that's involved in just trying to get 473 homes rebuilt in Malibu. I think the city of Malibu itself has run headlong into the problem, as people who normally just went about their day and didn't ever think about City Hall except maybe to complain about the taxes they were paying, all of a sudden find themselves showing up to get a permit to rebuild their home. And I was going to move on, but during the break, I'm reading the mayor wrote an editorial talking about the things the city has done. And I'm thinking, I might not have fully given you the full detail of everything that's taking place there. That, if you're going to effectively get exposed to what's taking place, maybe you ought to hear a little bit more of this. So I'll give you a little bit more. Now, the city council did a few things, took some steps to speed up the rebuilding process. And understand, this is a year on, okay? There's people who are frustrated trying to build. The conversation with their friends is, well, are you done and you're going to be in your home for Christmas? And the answer is, no, we're nowhere near that. We haven't even gotten to the point where we've issued a permit yet. We've got, we got a long ways to go on that. I was trying to put in the house the way it was, but apparently there's a new fire code that says, 20% of the parcels that will be rebuilt with upgraded fire department access. The state fire code requires at least 20-foot wide access for the fire to get through. You've seen those shots. Maybe you watch the fires and the fire truck pulls up and fireman's trying to get down a narrow alley between two houses, and now there's supposed to be a 20-foot wide alley there. So homeowner goes, well, this is a pretty narrow lot. How do I put in a 20-foot wide alley? And of course, they don't find this process out immediately. Some of them probably had their home plans redrawn exact. Just build me the same house. Just put the same thing I had there. Well, the same thing you had there is no longer possible you've had upgrades to the California Building Code. You have this new requirement that, that affects 20% of the parcels in Malibu that they have to have a 20-foot wide access. Now, they've gotten the fire department to be a little bit more flexible, saying that the Bundy, this new person they put on to speed this process through, said the fire department is now willing to allow 15 feet wide in some cases. So her advice is to make sure you reach out to the fire department. I don't know why you're supposed to reach out to the fire department if there's gone to one counter. And I'm not trying to beat up on Malibu. Malibu is like any other city, just running headlong into their own regulations. But you got state building codes are changing in 2020. So that imposes a deadline, and that's going on all over California. Anybody who wants to submit plans now, before the January 1st, any plans submitted after January 1st have to meet the new California building codes. And so they got all the way up till December 31st from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. They're going to have City Hall open so that you can submit plans, which is a good idea. Any city, anywhere, should be open if there's a major change coming. Some cities are going to incredibly be on vacation all through the end of the year. I don't know who's made provisions. I don't know if our city's made provision. That's going to be a phone call I'll make on Monday. Are we open like Malibu is? We should be. And they've got some relief out of the state legislature where Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law exempting California wildfire victims from the state's new solar mandate. So on top of everything else, you don't have to make your home solar ready, which should ease things up. But and that maybe addressed one of these residents that was at this town hall. He says it's hard to get a true estimate of what it's really going to cost. Yeah, that's a problem. All right. So anyhow, I just was during the break. I took time to read this editorial by the mayor. And she says the city council created an expedited permitting process for like or homes that are the same footprint as the home that was burned down, or like per like plus 10%. What they did is they waived the fees. So they said, if you're building the same house, we're going to waive the fees. There's a lot of fees that get applied to city plan check. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe that's an exaggeration. Tens of thousands of dollars, a lot of money. But all that does is waive the fees. That doesn't change the requirement if all of a sudden the fire department is, well, thank you very much for waiving the fees, except the fire department is now telling me that I have to provide 20 foot of setback. That isn't the same as what I had before, so do my fees still waive, or does this now kick me into some special consideration where I have to pay the fee? And, the city council members, to be fair to them, they're just trying to work through this issue. City halls is as complicated for them as anybody else. I mean, after a while, you're in the seat, you kind of get an understanding of what's going on with it. But so they think waiving the fees is a good idea, which it is. And then the city eased regulations on trailers and temporary dwellings. So you had somebody who says, hey, I got nowhere to live. You know what? At least I got the utilities there, the electric, everything's in. I managed to get that. I got some electric. I just want to put a mobile home there. So you have someplace to live on own property. So the city said, okay, temporary dwellings are going to be okay to make it easier for residents to live on their property while they rebuild. Hotels get expensive. And up in the city of Paradise, where they lost the entire town, just about everybody's living in a motorhome. So, and the city hired additional contract staff in planning, public works, building. The city installed a special walk-up fire rebuild help desk. I know they're doing a lot, but you'd have to look at this and say, none of this is easy. It is not easy to build a house. And if your house burns down, get ready. Get some professional help. You must have somebody that understands government, understands this process. Don't go it alone. You'll never get there. You can't get there from here. This is Russ Betts on iHub Radio, back with more.